everyone, and welcome to Puzzled Parents. I am so excited today to have our very special guest. This is Julie. Welcome, Julie. Thanks for being with us today. And why don't you tell us how you are impacted by the autism community? What brings you here today?
Hi, Susan. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Julie. For those of you who are just meeting me for the first time, I'm a visibility strategist and I love to help women in the entrepreneurial space be seen, heard, and connected. And the reason how I ended up in Puzzled Parents is because for the first time in a while, I'm finally admitting that yes, I was somebody that was born on the spectrum, and I'm here to kind of share my story about how I've been living my life practically misdiagnosed, or I would say misdiagnosed, maybe undiagnosed, because it was
Mhm.
just something that was never taken very seriously in my community and my family. So I just want to share my story that as an adult with being on the spectrum, that you could still go places and you could still be who you are and not let that define you.
That is an incredibly powerful story, and that's one of the reasons I am incredibly excited for you to join us. I think that's going to resonate with so many people, especially women, because girls in general are underdiagnosed to begin with. So, what made you finally say, "Okay, that's me. This is part of me. I get it. I admit it. I accept it."
Good question. So to be honest with you, when I was growing up, like it was just something that I kind of kept hidden. So like when you, for people who don't know, like when you have autism or you're some kind of disability, sometimes you do what's called masking and you don't even realize it. So this is basically where you you have the symptoms of a disability, especially like being a neurodivergent, being having autism, and then at home you act out like the symptoms, but then when you're out you kind of mask it, you kind of know how to properly behave. And that was something I didn't even realize that I was doing until later in life, that I was kind of doing, going between these two. Like I was able to be normal outside, but then when I was inside, I was able to just let loose and be free and let the symptoms prevail, right? So
Right.
I don't know. It was just something. Being in the comfort of my own home, I was able to be myself. My family was able to accept me, even though they were aware that something was wrong. But it was just, um,
Mhm.
living in the 80s and the 90s, that kind of thing was still very taboo. It was lack of knowledge, and a lot of people didn't really understand it. They were thinking that autism, you had to really be on the severe side, wearing helmets,
Right.
banging your head, that type of thing, right? So there wasn't really any in between. There wasn't really any gray areas, and I think it's in maybe in like early 2002. I was watching America's Next Top Model, and there was a contestant that applied and she won. Well, she didn't win, but she ended up being one of the 10 or 12 contestants. And actually, when she first walked in and introduced herself to Tyra Banks, she said, "Oh, I'm an aspiring model who has Asperger's syndrome." And when I found out that it was like a form of autism where you're lacking social skills, I was like, that kind of sounds like something I might have. Because remember
Mhm.
now, I'm like a person that's been through all my life being undiagnosed and kind of, I was always looking for some kind of diagnosis, but I live in Canada and the waiting list is long. And then also at the same time, they did diagnose young kids, and it's just
Mhm.
lack of resources at the time. So anyway, when she said that, yeah, I have Asperger's, and I was like, what if that's something I have? You know what I mean? Like I said, so I kind of doing some more research on it, and I actually it motivated me and inspired me to take a special care counseling course. And this is where I found out more about disabilities, specifically like autism and Asperger's, and knowing that there's different spectrums. So that I was like,
Right.
oh yeah, I belong on the spectrum. I know that I'm like pretty intelligent and I'm very bright in a lot of ways, and I it's just
Mhm.
that there's like these little symptoms that you have that kind of kind of throw you off the chart. But I mean, maybe I've pretty much learned to make it a superpower. Like, don't let it like bother me. Don't let it affect my life. Like, I could use it because I have a very good great long term memory. I could remember things really well. Like, it has its uses. So, to make a long story short, that's what kind of inspired me. And seeing these people on TV just like talking about their disability, talking about autism, and I was like, you know what, it's
Mhm.
time to embrace it. And I want to be able to inspire other people to not let their disability define them, and they could they could create an impact and change the world. So
That is, wow, that is so powerful. It is. And having raised a daughter with autism, especially, that story just resonates with me so much. Um, I don't know if I shared with you. I know I've shared on my show before, but my daughter was only diagnosed because someone mentioned Asperger's to me. And I was like, what is that? And so I, like you, I started researching, and this was probably in 2008. And I was researching it, and I was like, well, that sounds like her. That sounds like her. But the challenge I found, and I don't know if you ran into this, is that everything I could find that talked about autism and things said, well, this is what it's like in boys. It's different in girls, but nothing said how. And I'm like, tell me how. I know it's different. Don't keep telling me it's different. Tell me what it looks like. Tell me how. And that was a little frustrating for me because I really wanted to know what was going on with my child. And finally, I wrote her neurologist a letter saying, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Do you think this is what it is? And finally, at 10 years old, that's the only reason that she got diagnosed, because she was diagnosed with developmental delay and ADHD and some other things, but not with Asperger's or autism. And Asperger's actually was Asperger's or autism. One of the two used to be listed under the psychological codes in the medical billing stuff, and they finally switched it over to a neurological for a neurodevelopmental issue. So yeah, wow. Um, did you find that when you would get back from a social interaction that you would just be exhausted? Like if you came home from school, were you just kind of like, oh, just kind of worn out from taking all that energy to try to fit in and act normal? And I say normal, you know what I mean. Um, was that something that you experienced?
okay, well, since we're going to talk about the social journey, since the people with Asperger's or autism, they struggle in the social environment. So, um, this when I really started to notice that like my disability was kind of classified as somebody. Well, I won't say my disability, but I was classified as different as I changed schools in the third grade. And then what happened was, um, I'm not really sure. I would say maybe because I came into the school, I was very shy, I was very quiet, I didn't speak my mind, I didn't have a voice.
Mm.
And I think there were new kids, and to me, there were new kids, and then they basically, wrote me off as like, oh, she's a weird kid, and she's just, we don't want to talk to her. So I would say like the first half of the year in my new school in the third grade, it was very difficult because there was always that one kid that like wants to, get everybody together. Be like, oh, you're the popular kids. Get the popular kids kind of like, isolated so that they don't talk to like the people that are different. And so basically I had to struggle coming to school every day, and like half the class or like the majority of the class didn't want to talk to me or didn't want to have anything to do with me because,
Yeah.
oh, she's a weird kid, right? And I was struggling at the same time to hide those symptoms. And I think sometimes when I was in class, it would pop out somehow, like, just like, being stared off into space, or just like laughing for no reason, or, like there's sometimes, I don't really know, maybe
Hmm.
from based on some of the symptoms from your daughter, but sometimes we have these little quirks and we have to, if we don't control it, and then you could end up like being ostracized for it. So I think that's what happened
Yeah.
too, because I had a hard time trying to sit still all day, and had a hard time trying to like be friends with people, because I'm
Mhm.
somebody who's like more of a lone wolf and just wanted to be by myself. So yeah, to answer your question, it was very draining to be around that type of energy, because you have like the loud extroverts and who like to talk to everybody, and who like to,
Mhm.
don't like to keep quiet. You know what I mean? I'm just like quiet, shy in the corner, but then you have these people,
Right.
and yeah, it used to burn my energy, and it just took a long time. And I think till this day, I find it still hard to find my people. You know what I mean? Like, just because
Yes.
yeah, and like
Yeah.
people with autism, we just love to be alone a lot of the time. And but if we find somebody that like aligns with us, then we could talk a lot. We could, share the same interests. But yeah, it's even to this day, like I can't even go out to like social gatherings because my energy is drained after like an hour or like maybe 2 hours at max. So it still affects me, you know what I mean? So and
Yes, yes. My daughter, when we would go out to a social activity, she was kind of a social butterfly, and I was kind of the stand in the corner, don't talk to me person. But she chat, she loved to chat. She would just chat everybody up, chat, 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 chat. And she would meet you, and by the time she was done with your conversation, she would know absolutely everything about you, pretty much. But then when we would get home, she would just like, oh, I have to take a nap. And like if there was a birthday party or something where kids were loud and running around and the environment was very chaotic,
yeah,
even the next day she'd be kind of drained. So I had to kind of plan, okay, we're doing this activity this day. And so the next day I made sure it was kind of just a quiet down day where she could kind of recharge and recuperate. So that's kind of what she experienced there with that.
it actually
So
probably explains a lot now that why I miss school a lot too, because like being in a big social environment where you have like kids that are like overly loud and just like to steal all the attention, and then like it didn't the bullying didn't stop until maybe like sixth grade, where people started maturing. I was still getting like little people being kids being kids type thing, but I think the
mhm.
bullying really died down. It was always somebody different. And I think there were times where I was just like, I don't want to go to school today because I just didn't want to face those kids, like I just had it. So I understand like being drained and then wanting to come home, take a nap, or maybe don't want to see the kids for a couple of days. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit more about what you're doing now because I know you haven't let your challenges stop you and you've built this great entrepreneurial space and are doing really good things. So tell us about the different things that you're doing now and how, like you said, you kind of use your autism as a superpower where you're able to kind of focus and the things you're passionate about, you really can just dive in and give it 110%. So tell us what you're up to these days.
Oh, okay. Well, after like I was able to come out and just say that, my autism is this is who I am, and I'm not ashamed to say who I am anymore. And so I've started, going on podcasts and talking about it. And I think what really like really got the what's it the ice really broke the ice was, I would say, that when I joined She Rises Studios and I was able to write my solo book and write my co-authored book, and then I explained more of my story in the Becoming an Unstoppable Woman of Faith. And then now I'm like more comfortable. I started like collaborating with other authors to tell more about my story. So I'm kind of like getting the idea of being an author. I started writing a couple magazines to like talk about it. Yeah, and I have a community now. So what I do is, like I said, I was a disability expert, but I love to help women, especially shy introverts, get more seen and heard in small communities. So I created a Facebook group where I'm getting women to like host their own networking events and come and connect and shine in like when other people host events, so that they don't have to feel so pressured to be out there to sell themselves and to tell their story. So that's where I'm starting. And then now I want to expand. My brand is She Means Impact, and I want to expand that. So
Can you
I've
say that
got,
again? I didn't quite catch that. I'm
oh yeah,
sorry.
she means impact. She means impact. So yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So I want to be able to bring that to life more with a magazine. I want to be able. I'm relaunching my podcast this month, so I'll be back in the space talking. I want to be able to do some guest speaking. More summits, more in person, virtual. I'm not quite ready yet to like expand, but in that way. But I'm moving towards that. I'm hoping to write more books and maybe get other women to write more books as well to tell their story, because like I was saying this morning, storytelling is all about, it helps you resonate with your audience and everything. So
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and hopefully I could do like I'm actually collaborating with women in my local community within Montreal. So there are other introvert coaches and they want to collaborate and do in-person events. So I'm hoping that that's going to take off to like go from group coaching to one-on-one coaching. And then I'd love to have my own retreat and somewhere out there and educate women. So there's a lot right now on the horizon. So
That's incredible. And I just love that so much. And it's such an inspiration to so many people out there, and I always tried to tell my daughter, autism is not who you are. It's just a part of you. It doesn't define you. For her, she had beautiful auburn hair, and I've said this before, but she happens to have blue eyes. She happens to have auburn hair. She happens to have autism. And I really tried to frame it in that way. But it was difficult. It's difficult for someone to accept. And there's still, I find, a lot of stereotypes still attached to that, where people still just don't understand. Or it's not as bad as it was like when we were kids and there was just Rain Man, or like you were saying, they expected helmets and things like that. But there's still that stereotype attached to it, where one of the things that people will ask me when I say, oh, my daughter has autism, they'd say, well, what's the thing that she's like super brilliant at? All people with autism have one thing that they're super brilliant at. And that's not true. That's true for a lot of them, or they have an interest that they focus in on or something like that. But not all people with autism have that, oh, they're a mathematician genius, or something like that. So there's still a lot of stereotypes out there. And I just really want to thank you for being here, because one of the whole purpose of this platform is just to come together and help educate those people on, this is the reality. This is what it looks like in real life, in real time. And it's not one thing. It's a spectrum, which means it's a variety. There's so many different people and things on that. I don't know if you've heard this phrase, but there's a saying that if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. It's not, if you've met one person, you met them all. It's definitely, if you met one person, you met one person. So I think it's so great. So tell me a little bit more about, I know you're starting a magazine, right?
Yeah, I would like to. Like, I figured I've been so inspired with writing and in it that I was like, She Means Impact needs to have, I want to expand the brand, and I want to be able to give those introverts as well. Like, if they don't want to be on camera, well, hey, how about you write in a magazine? How about you write? Like, I want to be able to expose them to different ways of showing up, right? Of being a visibility expert. So I'm testing out a magazine first. I want to do one health and wellness, and then I want to do one just like general. She Means Impact, like bring your story of your mind, and let's get you out there. So, um, I'm hoping to launch that like next. Well, maybe launch looking for article contributors by next week, so that I could have it launched by like late November, early December before the holidays. So, yeah, it's pretty exciting stuff. So and I have a
Yeah.
book coming out. I co-authored in another book called Women of Purpose, and that's supposed to launch on the 2nd of November.
What's it called?
It's called Women of Purpose, Compassionate Hearts. And
Oh,
yeah,
awesome. Is that where She Rises as well?
no, it's not. It's with another it's with another person. She's doing that as
Okay.
well. But I am doing another one with She Rises called Quiet Battles. I think that's coming out next year. So um,
Sweet.
but yeah, I'm really trying to. So I'm trying to expand the brand, trying to get empower more women in different ways. So, and like I said, if you don't let the autism define you, just continue and keep growing and get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's like my mantra that I stole from Steve Harvey there. So that's
Yeah,
what.
get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So if you could tell girls who might be, or women who might be out there that are kind of struggling with, gee, I think that's me, but I don't want to admit that, or I don't want to accept that. What is the one thing you would tell them?
Like admit that they have an issue or something. Like admit that they're introverted or admit that they have a disability and it's not rapidly.
Well, thinking about your journey and how you were kind of like, I think I might have autism, but you had to kind of work through that to accept that within yourself. What one piece of advice would you give to them if they're going, gosh, I don't know if I really want to admit that, or maybe they're in a little bit of denial, like, "Oh, I see these characteristics, but that I don't have that. That's not me. That's not me. Those people are, weird and I'm not, or whatever. You know what I mean? uh just trying to rationalize with themselves, like, no, that's not me. I'm, yeah, or a parent seeing signs in their child but not wanting to accept that that's what it is. Like, do you have any advice for them, or
Yeah, I kind of mentioned earlier, like my
yeah,
house, it's like, oh, she's just gonna grow through it, like it wasn't that serious. And I guess because there weren't a lot of like physical symptoms, that it was kind of mistaken, like, oh, it might not be, or it might not be taken seriously. So if I had to go, I would say, first of all, look within yourself. If you think that there's something wrong, then, now we have Google, so we could easily search up these symptoms, and we could, kind of say, oh, I think I might have this, and I think I should, go to the next step and do a prevention. And
mm,
I mean, if you have to talk to somebody about it, go right and talk to them. But um, I don't even know how I was able to work through it, to be honest. I think it was just my resilience, my motivation that I have to do better, and using it as a superpower. And I guess also having been bullied relentlessly in school, that kind of just made me want to have a thick skin and just be like, okay, well, I'll show you that I'm not a nobody. I'll show you that I can like rise above it, and better. So I think it's just really about your mindset and making sure that uncover those
the
mindset.
mindset. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's
And
great. Do you feel like part of your drive and your mission and part of your ability to accept it and kind of push forward, was that something that you learned or was ingrained in your family? Because I know you said that your family accepted you, but back then, again, nobody really knew about autism. So, do you feel like that's something that your family instilled in you as well?
I think so, because my mother offered a lot of self-esteem. Like, she really boosted my confidence and my self-esteem, and she was also my voice, because when these kids would relentlessly bully me, I would just go to her. I wouldn't stay silent. I would go to her and I would tell her, like, this one is harassing me, and then she would take care of the issue, and talk to them herself. So I think that made me kind of think that, you're just as good as anybody else. So it doesn't okay, so I don't have the voice to express myself, but I could still be in the same room with you and thrive, no matter what with my disability. So,
Mm,
I think we have strong Caribbean background roots, and so it taught me to be a very strong, very wise, and because there's so many kids now, like when these things happen and they get bullied, and they take the other alternative route, which is not a good thing, right? So, um,
yeah.
I'm really happy that I was able to instill those values in me, get the values instilled in me, so that I was able to, still be here and still make an
Wonderful. You are such an inspiration. You really are. Gosh, I'm getting chills. Well, I just want to thank you so much for being here today and for being willing to step out there and say, hey, this is who I am. This is my story. And it's okay to be different. It's okay to be who you are. That doesn't stop you. It doesn't mean that you're less. And that's one of the running themes that's going to be through my book that I'm working on, is the different, not less. We're just different. And it's okay to be different. Embrace that. Embrace the power of being different. And I just want to thank you again so much for being here, and we
easy.
will connect with you soon.
All right, thank you, Susan. Thank you, everyone.